Good evening, and thank you for joining us for Cave Dwellers Podcast. The Cave Dwellers is for the called, for the crushed, and the becoming. This evening, we have episode 2, and we will introduce the Marketplace Network to the world, a global kingdom movement where revival meets real life and the Spirit of God moves through systems, not silos. It's part testimony, part training, and fully prophetic. A call to faith-filled leaders to embrace their divine assignment in business, ministry, and the modern world. Welcome to the Marketplace. All right, everybody, we're going to get started tonight, and we want to start off talking about how the Marketplace was born. Each leader present, we're going to give a few moments to share about your encounter and what it looked like for you when you realized that the Marketplace ministry, the Marketplace network was moving you beyond what traditional systems had made available to you.
Well, I'm going to come in from the point of when I entered into the Marketplace. I remember receiving a phone call, and this was before Bishop J was over the Marketplace. And I was driving down the road in Park Heights, and I received a phone call, and he said, always called me pastor before he even had me ordained. He said, I want you to know that I'm about to take over the Marketplace. And I said, and I'm going with you. Because what I knew in my heart was that it wasn't going to be just church. I couldn't tell you what it was going to be at that moment, but I knew that something great was about to take place. And that was the beginning of the birthing of the vision for me, knowing that something great was about to take place. I always told Bishop, I'm not a person that really likes church. I don't like church. And as I watched us maneuver and transition, God was pulling us to a special place. And I knew that I was in the right place. So I'm grateful that I stuck and stayed, because the direction that we're going in is you're more relaxed, you're more welcomed. And so that's my part.
Amen. What marketplace means to me is it has been a journey, a very pleasant journey, being in fellowship with Marketplace and all of the leaders within. I've been a part of Marketplace since 2014. And it's never been really a traditional place to be. I was pulled out of my comfort zone on several occasions, and the growth and development that I've gained being associated with marketplace, it has blown my mind. Being an introvert, I've been stretched and pulled again out of that comfort zone. And in the recent this past year has been such a blessing. The transitions that have been made has opened up doors, many doors of opportunity, such as the publishing of my new book that Marketplace took hold and just did all of the work basically for me once I shared that I was interested in doing the book. So Marketplace has been a blessing to me. It's allowed me to bless others as well.
You want me to go ahead?
You can.
So I kind of married to the marketplace. But I think for me, it was a transition. And so the marketplace that I came into is not the marketplace that I see today. It's almost like two different, it's hard to describe, but two different experiences that I remember coming in and having the space and the grace to really figure out what I was called to do in ministry outside of the pulpit, outside of teaching, outside of doing, more so focused on how I was going to show up in the marketplace. And so the marketplace literally welcomed me. I was able to kind of figure it out through prayer, through meeting with Bishop Blackwell and even fire, and having the space not to just continue to do, but figure out who I was called to be. And that's what the marketplace has provided. And now I'm comfortable doing and being.
Okay. Um, wow, 2014 Prophetess. Okay. So I guess it was before then that I that I came marketplace. Um, Probably just maybe a year or two, a year before. Well, yeah. Okay. No, I think it was probably 2013. Yeah. Or 12. Time is flying. Time is flying. Um, Began launched a new ministry, and that was different than um the Baptist church where I was, and needed a covering for the ministry, and sought out Apostle Stanley Butler, and came on board with Marketplace Fellowship and Churches International. Amen. Amen. um, and I'd like to pick up on the theme that Yvette dropped, which is that I met a lot of other introverts, in Bishop J and Prophetess Yvette and other people, but we were doing upfront leadership stuff. And it stretched me. Not that I wasn't doing it in my current capacity, but that I learned to fit ministry into my rhythm. And was with Marketplace when the pandemic hit. And for those 2 years that we were locked in, the marketplace was outside. Um, we couldn't, by law, we couldn't meet for worship, but we could meet for ministry. And so we fed a lot of people every week, and um, got immersed in the community, and had the space and the grace to figure out where we were going, and what we were evolving into. And uh, and I think evolution is probably the right word, because as Yvette has said, as Shanae has said, that we're not the same as when we came on board, um, and that we are the marketplace. Um, I've been able to be comfortable in my own skin, in my own introverted skin, and which has made me, I think, a better practitioner of kingdom business, because I can be my authentic self, and people are still impacted, and he can use me, and work through me. I think better than it was when I was trying to um, be like the norm, and collar up, and uh, be ecclesiastical and um, and being caught up in those things that maintain the status quo of the church. And so I think, as I said before, none of us went gladly. We went kicking and screaming. Uh, and it is through the obstacles that were put in our way uh, that the Lord has carried us and sat us down in the places where He wants us to be. And it's like the pandemic, like having space to do the things that we wanted, and even finally not having any physical space to do what we needed to do. And the Lord is just I'm not even going to say multiplied, because it's been exponentially. It's just blown our minds farther than we could fathom or think, and to the point that we sit and say, "Wow, how did we get here?"
Yeah. Well, my story is, I want to make it short, but it's a little long. My reality check was, uh, in the last 3 years, that the ministry of Marketplace was the ministry God had always called me to do. Um, and in its inception, what He was giving me to do was not well received. So I've had moments where I was attempting to share the concept of what we're doing right now, and it was not well received because it took some of the traditional components out of what people were used to. So one of the things that I remember years ago, not calling names, but I was at a conference and I intended to share what the Lord was giving me as it pertains to operating ministry and not being dependent on the tithe and offering of people to sustain the systems that God was putting in place. In my heart of hearts, I really meant to make sure that we were giving people an opportunity to learn, grow, or have resources accessible so that when we needed offering, when we needed time, we needed to be, people had their own resource, and they were not putting themselves out to sustain the systems that we were trying to operate by. And you guys know, in church, we're going to have Sunday Bible study, Friday night service, revivals, convocations, conferences, events. And every time we do that, those things cost money. And if you have a small ministry, you're bringing the same people in on a constant basis, month to month, hoping to generate revenue to maintain an idea that may benefit the head or the hierarchy, but not necessarily the body. So when I was offering that information, I was told that God had put tithe in place and that I should never mention people not tithing and things of that nature. But my intent was not for people not to tithe. It was to put our people in a better position so that when money or became an issue, it wasn't an issue, you know. So that went on for a while, and I believe for a long time, because of colonizer Christianity, we are taught to look outside of ourselves for answers. And as a result, I went through a whole lot of changes trying to find what God said somewhere else, hoping to get a system that would be able to incorporate what I was believing. And I was really, really unsuccessful at that. And then I realized that the answer was in me. It was never outside of me. It was never in having another leader to show me what God said. Because once God says something, it's kind of what He wants to see. But I didn't have the experience to trust that He was able to do what He was saying to me. So it took me a longer time to get myself where I needed to be. And by the time we were locking in, right before the pandemic, the last public ordination that Marketplace did, if you guys can remember, the burden for me was that it couldn't be a traditional ordination. We couldn't just ordain more preachers because we don't have a shortage of preachers. We couldn't just ordain or install more pastors. There's not a shortage of pastors. But the burden was that anybody that was about to be ordained, and Bishop Blackwell was the catechist, the system included you having to package what God gave you so that when you had your opportunity to lead, you were actually operating in the things that he had spoken over your life, into your life. So in order to be ordained, and I think that was the 2019 convocation, pandemic hit in 2020, so it's the 2019 convocation. We ordained pastors to complete ministries and nonprofits and whatever it was that God had actually called them to do. That's what was being packaged, and that was what was being pushed out. And it was an amazing time. I was excited to see it, even though it was not what people were traditionally used to. So we took a lot of flack because I had so many people around me that were actually members of my church that instantly I started calling pastor. I was pushing people where they needed to be because the assignment is not for us to hoard bodies and keep people with us. If the gospel is to be pushed forward and to be spread, people need to have the autonomy to function in what God has called them. And the marketplace was providing that structure and that place where they can get the systems they needed to function on their own railroad. So instead of holding people in, we were in a place where we were now pushing people to do what God had actually called them to do. And as soon as we started getting our momentum, February, we ended up running into COVID, and the whole world shut down so that God can speak even louder. That my intent was not for you to be in the building. My intent was not for you to operate in the system that you had traditionally known, but I am trying to broaden your horizons and put you in a position to receive this end time revival, this harvest of souls of people that may not be church, but they know me. And it's been a phenomenal journey. The pandemic actually exposed our strengths. It allowed our leadership team to really prove what we were made of. Pastor Neal's not on with us tonight, but I know she's going to be back on. But we, during the pandemic, we had tractor trailer loads of food coming into the community. We had restaurants and other agencies that connected with us to make sure that the people in the community had food daily. And when we didn't have restaurants and the farms sending food, we actually prepared food and we stayed out every day. At one point, we were doing 5, 6 days a week outside, making sure people were getting what they need. And Pastor Neal also, like during the pandemic, when COVID was at its worst, we were out serving the community and going to people's houses, finding out what they needed. We had connections to get people appliances and stoves because we had food. Then start finding out that people didn't have stoves at the house or didn't have refrigerators. We had the food, but then found out people that are struggling really don't know how to cook zucchini. So we partnered with a lot of people in order to give people information that would allow them to be sustained during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, Pastor Neal, we went to people's houses at some point, and I'm not saying that to be proud of it because we were not safe sometimes. We didn't have our masks on. But what I can attest to is that when you're doing the things that God has actually called you to do, He will protect you and He will keep you. Because during the entire pandemic, we served every day and never got sick. Every day, never got sick. And the one time that I actually ended up catching COVID during the pandemic was during the time when I wasn't doing what God actually called me to do. So that registered with me and it stuck with me. I realized that I needed to be doing what God wanted me to do. And as we started to go deeper into the pandemic and making our way out of the pandemic, the systems that were coming into play were those agencies and ministries and business ideas that people had been ordained to in 2019 were growing and developing. And now we are in a place where we are kind of creating our own ecosystem so that our ministries and our businesses all will interconnect. And I know as we go forward, we're going to talk more about that this evening. But the idea of marketplace was not limited to just traditional church, not just a worship experience, not a queued up organ. It's really about people having a safe place where they can get grace and space to figure life out and encounter God exactly where they are. That is the marketplace.
Can I add? I think the evolution of where we have landed has affirmed uh, our theology
Uh,
and of being called and being sent, and that traditionally, especially in our culture, when somebody says that they have a call, we automatically want them to do an initial sermon. It was like it's a call to preach, or it's a call to the pulpit, and it's a call to ministry with inside the walls. And we have spent the last 10, 12 years trying to uh, get people to understand that the Lord has placed you in strategic places,
uh-huh.
and that's where He means for you to do the kingdom business. Is to in the places that He has placed you, and that call is no less important um, than the calls that we traditionally um, look at. And so we gave ordination papers to business owners and nonprofit people and therapists, and who are carrying the mantle of the Lord.
Yeah, and it's not limited to pulpiteers,
Right.
So ministry itself is not limited to people just being effective preachers. And by the grace of God, I have been
We
surrounded
all
by
are.
phenomenal preachers. You guys are amazing preachers, but that is not the end all be all to who God has actually called us to be. And having a place where you can be comfortable in your own skin and actually do the work. And I think that's the part that's missing sometimes. We're excited about doing ministry, but we don't do the work on our personal selves. We don't do the work needed to make sure that we are whole, healthy, healed. And as a result, we go out and we have all of these roller coasters, all of these emotions, and all these things that we're trying to sort through to be who God already said we were. And one of the prerequisites for that is to be able to look in that mirror, take the good, bad, and the ugly of yourself and hand it over to God and allow Him to let you see you and work on you. And then it changes how you handle other people. And I think that's what makes Marketplace different. So in essence, when everyone is looking, this is welcome to the marketplace. We didn't start a new brand. We actually activated a remnant of leaders to operate within a kingdom economy. All right. So we want to talk now. We talked about our marketplace experiences. We want to talk now about specifically what the marketplace is. So let me say this: the marketplace network exists to equip leaders to ignite revival and activate kingdom solutions in every sphere: business, media, education, government, family, and faith. So what we want to talk about for the next few minutes, and I'll just walk through as we go, but we want to talk about first that the marketplace network is a hub, not a hierarchy. And some of you can just jump in and let's share a little bit about that. Because we are a hub. We're not a hierarchy. Those of you that have served with me any period of time, I know I am the least overbearing pastor or leader you have ever had. Because I really trust the gift of God and the people that He's placed in my life. So it doesn't require me to be a dominant figure or to show my scepter. The revelation of marketplace takes the scepter and breaks it because there is no scepter. It's actually a baton. So everything I have is easily passed to you. Everything you have is easily passed to me. We are a hub, not a hierarchy. Someone jump in. Let's talk.
You know, I've been in ministry where people are fighting to be up front, fighting for their name to be called, just trying to get, you know, I am. When you don't have to do those things because God has called each and every one of us for a purpose and a plan. And if we just trust him and be humble in the place that he has set us, we will see him work it out for us. And I think that's um it sounds easy, but it's not because we fight against our own ideas and perceptions and judgments and but at the marketplace, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I'm here at this time in this season with you all because it's nothing like being authentic and and feel good in your own skin.
Yeah.
And I think that's a struggle for people is not comfortable in their own skin. So you end up fighting for something that it's not even what God has for you. And what has been created here is an environment that you can grow right where you are. And for me, it is a wonderful experience. I want anyone that can connect with us get this because life is short. And to have this in ministry, it's amazing to be free. It's amazing.
I love it here. I love the idea. And you are right. You have never been that one to micromanage. You've never been that one to um, be that stern ruler. You are always open to hear new ideas. I'm reminded of even not wanting to wear the clergy attire and asking for the apostolic grace. And it was given freely. And it was like, whoa, okay. I just love the idea that whatever for me, whatever it was or is that God places in my heart and in my spirit, and I submit it to you. We pray about it, and it's a go. If you have any ideas or any corrections to it, you give it, and you give it in grace, in humility, and I love that. I also love the fact that with being in the marketplace, we are allowed to um, work in our spheres, in our lanes, and not be made to do things that we feel uncomfortable with. You allow us to be ourselves, to walk in the grace that God has given us, to walk in the sphere, in the authority that God has given. And I absolutely love that. If I don't think I would ever want to go back into the four walls of the church. Because for me, I feel I've been more impactful in ministry outside of the four walls. I know the burden of prison reform that God has given me. I know the prophetic that God has given me, and it's so being confound to that wall, quote unquote. It gives you limited ability to do what God has called you to do the way He's programmed you to do it and graced you to do it. So I'm loving it.
Wow. Well said. Well said. Um, I guess it was yesterday we were talking. Um, I was trying to get a client to understand that yes, he's given us a variety of gifts, but the verse also says a variety of administrations.
Mhm.
And that and I can say it again, all of us on here today have the gift of prophecy and of the prophetic, but our administration of the gift is totally different. And And one's not higher or lower than the other, it's just different. And grasping the fact, the truth that different is not deficient.
Ah,
Amen.
that's good.
It's different.
Just a,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And being a hub and not a hierarchy, it allows you to have the fivefold ministry gifts operating and complementing one another as opposed to competing with the other. So we can't say there's not a need for the teaching gift that rests on Bishop Blackwell to teach to thousands because of how God gives her to break it down. We can't say that, you know what I mean? So it's almost like, many years ago, my dad tried to teach me how to drive a stick shift. To this day, I drive an automatic for a reason. But it's allowing yourself to pull back when the efficiency of someone else's gift or administration suits a need better than what God has gifted you with. And it doesn't take away from what he's giving you, but it truly does allow us to complement one another as we're operating as we come together for worship, as believers in community and in our spheres. And so literally, if I see a need that someone has that I don't have the ability to meet, it's not a big deal to say, hey, can you step in and help this person with so and so? I've referred people to all of us on the line. And it's because I appreciate the ability to come together and know one another, and then being able to work together so that true ministry is accomplished.
uh-huh. Yeah, and I love that we are a hub over a hierarchy, for many reasons, but one particular is the revelation between the scepter and the baton. Um, as long as we operate in what we would traditionally say kingdom, we are building an empire that has a man or a figure or a woman at the top, and everything is operating from the top down, but everything that matters is going from the bottom to the top. Um, and when you have that mindset, you actually become a ruler. So you're trying to maintain your kingdom, not necessarily God's kingdom. And once you turn that scepter into a baton, knowing that I'm not holding any chair, because who's on the throne is God. It's his operation. It's his people that need the help. Um, so when I take that scepter down and it's a baton, people are coming to get what they need. And instead of me trying to grab them and hold them with me, I'm handing them what God gave me to give them and giving them the space and the grace to go figure it out. So instead of building a kingdom, we have built a kingdom, a community of people who are interconnected, and somehow or another, the grace of God has allowed it to, what we used to say, we are uniquely united. It has allowed us to grow and prosper and provide opportunity for other people because we're not trying to uh, hold the spotlight or stay in charge longer than we need to. I absolutely love being able to sit back and watch Bishop Blackwell teach and my wife preach and the other leaders, Pastor Neal preach and Prophetess Williams now, she is tearing up everything right now. I enjoy watching and seeing this happen. So for me, it's an easy sidestep to get out of the way and let God do what he's doing. And when it's my turn, I'll do what he has me to do. But there is no competition. I don't feel the need to compete. I don't feel the need to prove that I'm better or greater than anybody. I'm excited about what God has gifted and graced me with. And most of us that can talk, you realize that most of the gifting and the grace that's on you came from a level of pain that you probably can't even articulate on a regular basis. So you stay out of the way. And that's one of the things that we constantly say at the marketplace. We're going to say what he said and get out of the way.
And I've been in over the last few years enjoying the the testimony of the marketplace when you would run in and say, oh God, I had an encounter with the Lord while I was with this guy and we were rehabbing the attic at, such and such a place, and the spirit came in, and, and the Lord transformed him. And or Trini would come in and say, I had this encounter with the Lord in the Uber, and and the person started asking questions, and I was able to tell them about the grace of Jesus, and it was just and people just doing what they were called to do, and being where they happened to be at the time, where God had called them to be. I'm a firm believer that God would even send people all the way across the country, all across the world, just to have an encounter with me if I needed it. Yeah.
And that's exactly how he does it.
Mhm.
From anywhere. And this is not a knock against the traditional church system. Bless your hearts, all your hearts. We love what God does, and if it's working for you, peace and blessings. We are just acknowledging that once we focus more on the ministry component and not necessarily the fitting in component, not necessarily the four walls component, we actually saw an expansion and how the grace of God was moving. And I've pastored for 25 years before this stuff started, and we started to evolve into this. And you had a lot of people coming to church, and they're constantly visiting. And I didn't experience the transformation like we experience now until the focus was outside of the building. So working with groups of people, working with
Yes, I'll go speak about my Village Therapeutic Services, and I actually was one of the ministry clients Bishop Blackwell had, and in her ministry, she literally created space for me to figure out what that looks like, because you can have an idea about maybe what you're gifted at, or where God needs you to be, but until you create space for it, or you have the ability to develop that idea, it's kind of difficult to know when to begin running.
Mhm.
And so my village came about because I recognized that there is a severe lack of mental health clinicians who are people of color. And I wanted to fill that space, because when you're gifted with something, and education as well, it's almost like there's only but so much that you can put off doing. Because my husband actually told me years ago, this is what I needed to be doing. I was doing my running phase, though. I hadn't created space for my village. But it came out in prayer. It came out in Bishop Blackwell doing what she does. Like, we literally created space for it. And then my husband has the uncanny ability to help you go from idea to literally running in whatever you need to be doing. Um, so creating space for it in prayer with the practical of the business formation side of things. And now it's been over 2 years.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. Time has flown, and it's different for me because I didn't see that. Having entrepreneurs or people that I knew that had their own, you will always see people working in other people's vineyards, so to speak. And so the idea that it was in the marketplace where I literally was able to come into that, so empowering, because it speaks to the fact that you don't have to necessarily have done these things before, but when you have a space where you can really allow the purpose of that God already placed in you to come forth, it's so empowering. And if he could do it for me, he can do it for anybody. And then also serving at the marketplace. Like, it's a part of who I am. It's not all that I am, though. And I think I like to make a distinction. So we encourage therapy, but I do not personally counsel anyone who's in the ministry, because you need a place where you can deposit those things in a therapeutic process, that you'll never have to worry about seeing that person on a Sunday. That doesn't mean that, we don't have conversations as people are having hard times, but really allowing you the freedom to have that space outside of the traditional church, and usually what people would associate with the pastoral role. Now I'm clinically trained, but I also recognize that there has to be a space where people have separate from the church so that you can work through some of those things without anybody knowing certain parts of your story. And I honor that. I'm a true believer that people deserve that personal space. And of course, the community of the marketplace is always present for prayer, for counsel, and those kind of things. But I think it's necessary to have a place outside to really work through those things without, like, this is my pastor helping me through this. So,
Awesome sauce. Awesome. And we have J Speaks Consulting Firm. And I know that can sound he's using his name for his business, but for years I feel like my voice was stripped because I was looking outside of myself for answers, and I was depending on other people to provide the solutions that were already in here. And now that my eyes are open, Jay Speaks, we do poetry. I have books that are getting ready to come out. I have several poems that'll be released soon. We just released our book, Cave Dwellers. It's a series of books called Cave Dwellers. And the first one that is out now is called Anointing to Adullam. And it just takes King David's journey from the field all the way up to he ended up in the cave. And I believe that's going to help some prophetic voices and some leadership gifts that are just in transition, because there's nothing worse than being stuck in between what God said and what you thought you were going to do, and you're waiting for him to do what he said. So prayerfully, it'll be inspiration for that. But then Jay Speaks Consulting, basically what it did was, over the last 20 years, I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. So I have a lot of business ventures that I have been a part of or attempted to do. Some did well, some didn't do so well. But instead of seeing all of that as losses, by the grace of God, I've been able to calculate it as lessons and organize a system by which someone coming in to J Speaks Consulting Services, of course, we have the marketplace publisher, so we can help you publish your books, and we have marketplace publishing where we do printing and graphics and anything you need to brand your business, your logos, your websites, and all those stuff. We even do online marketing that we're starting to push now, so that people can really amp up their online presence. And the other part that we've done is like every field. So now with therapy service, consulting, coaching, transportation, all of those venues or places that we work, we've compacted that information so that as people come in, now we have a reservoir that we turn on. And you come in, give us your ideas, and we've done it enough times that we can we can literally package you up and have you ready to go in a short period of time. The benefit is that all of these businesses, like Pastor Neal's not on, but I do have her talking about Boss. All of these businesses are interconnected. We said earlier, we are uniquely united. There is nothing that I do that I cannot refer out to pastor, to bishop, to prophetess, because we want to create an ecosystem that is dynamic for us with these businesses. So like every one of us should be able to benefit beyond what we can do on our own, because we have the same idea. We're serving the same God and we're blessing his people. So taking myself out of the equation, people coming in need help. There are some people that are going to come and they'll be able to hear my voice and get what they need. But I'm also strategic enough and also able to discern enough that sometimes people come in and they may need a prophetess vet to get them, you know, and being humble enough that when that happens, there's not a fight, there's no resistance, because if you win, I win. Somebody come in that needs coaching, and I am the introvert extraordinaire of this wonderful group of people. I think I am the greatest introvert. I I don't have the capacity to be coaching right now. So I'm not looking forward to coaching people. I believe when I was pastoring and about how we did ministry, everybody's building sons and we're bringing people in. I don't want that burden right now. It's just not what I want to do. But God has created the space in what we do so that even if I'm not up to it, if a personality comes and I can see where it fits, he gives you a greater assignment as a leader or a quiet leader. Someone coming in, I know exactly where you can get the help you need.